Hello, my name is Nadine Jones, and I am the founder of General Counsel Support Services, a legal and compliance consulting firm. And I will be providing little video vignettes of executive orders and potential impacts in the area of education, corporate, federal contractors, and trade and tariffs. And so today's little video is going to be about trade and tariffs. Not because I think it's more urgent, but just because there's something going on in the news reports that's kind of irking me just a little bit. So, in recent days, President Trump threatened to impose secondary tariffs on Russia if it did not come up with a plan for peace with Ukraine within the next 50 days. Okay. Then I'm reading news reports talking about secondary sanctions going to be imposed on Russia. Okay, let's just stop for just a second. Tariffs and sanctions are two different things. Tariffs just means that imports coming from a particular country might be at an elevated, there's an added tax to it, to the importer at destination. So if we're importing goods from China into the United States, then the importer of record is going to have to pay a tax on those goods of whatever amount the tariff is for. In this case, President Trump had said it's going to be a 100% tariff, secondary tariff. Okay. But a tariff means you can still engage with the United States commerce. You could still buy and sell. You could still own bank accounts and transact in US dollars. It just means that the imports coming in from your country will be at a higher cost to the importer within the United States. That's what a tariff is. Sanctions, on the other hand, means if US sanctions are imposed against you, let's just say it's comprehensive, or OFAC has imposed sanctions on a specially designated national, on a person that has deemed terrorist, person or organization, a terrorist organization. That means the person and or terrorist group cannot interact with US commerce. They can't have a bank account here. They can't hold property here. They cannot transact in US dollars. They can't fly here. They are like they are a pariah, meaning they cannot engage here. And US persons may not engage with the sanctioned person or entity or group anywhere in the world. You could be a US person living in Dubai, you still cannot engage with a US sanctioned person or entity. That's what a sanction is. You cannot engage in the US marketplace or commerce. Secondary sanctions means if the United States has designated a person or a group as sanctioned as a specially designated national, for example, then US persons may not engage with that person. That's the direct sanction. The secondary sanctions means anyone else in the world, whether you are a US person or not, if you engage with that blocked party or entity or group, now you are sanctioned. That's what a secondary sanctions is, okay? If you are not a US person, you are not subject to US jurisdiction, but if you engage with trade or other transactions with a blocked party, now we're going to block you. And so any bank accounts that you might have in the US, or if you want to engage in transactions with US dollar, or if you want to buy and sell in the US marketplace, or if you want to travel to the United States, no. Now you are engaged with someone or an entity that we don't like, and now we're going to block you. That's what a secondary sanction is. Okay, so secondary tariffs is a relatively new phenomenon, which I believe for the first time I've ever seen secondary tariff was back in March when President Trump imposed tariffs against Venezuelan oil imports. And in that executive order, I forget the number now. I should have it up, but I don't. And it was in March 2025. And in that executive order, it said any other country that buys Venezuelan oil that is subject to the US tariff, now their goods are going to be subject to a tariff in terms of imports into the United States. That's the first time I've ever seen secondary tariffs. So we don't want to buy Venezuelan oil. We will buy it, but it's going to be at a very high tariff rate, which means, it's probably not going to sell as much. We're going to have less imports into the United States. But we also don't want other countries to kind of make up the slack by buying Venezuelan oil so that the impact of our tariffs are not really felt. Now we're going to tariff your goods coming into the United States. So that's the first time I've ever seen secondary tariffs. You can still transact with the US. You are not a blocked party. You are not a sanctioned party. However, if you have countries that say, well, we still want to engage in trade with Russia, and we import a lot from those countries, let's say, oh, I don't know, China. And China's like, we don't care what you say. We're still going to we're going to deal with Russia. And if you want to impose 100% tariffs on goods exported from China and imported into the United States, good luck. That's what they might say. So look, let's all fervently pray for peace, of course. But I just wanted to clear that up. Tariffs and sanctions are two different things. Thank you.